During 2019, more than 2.2 million plug-in cars were sold around the world, equating to 1 in every 40 new cars registered and put on the road. The top 10 plug-in cars for last year each managed more than 41,000 sales in total, and they were split between all-electric models and plug-in hybrids. That top 10 list included cars like the Hyundai Kona EV, which sold 44,386 cars, the Renault Zoe, which sold 46,839 cars, and the BAIC EU Series, a car which sold 111,047 examples. The BAIC EU Series, occupying second place, might be a car that you've never actually heard of, and with good reason. It's only sold in China. But the car that came top in sales last year, selling 2.7 times more cars than that second-placed vehicle, was, you've guessed it, the Tesla Model 3. If you've been following the electric car world for any length of time, that won't come as a surprise. Tesla Model 3 has dominated the plug-in car market, and in some countries, the entire new car market, pretty much since it first rolled off the production lines in 2017. Even in a global list of the top 20 plug-in models, Tesla Model 3 accounts for 14% of all sales, while 17% of all cars on the lists were Teslas. Yet, as Forbes contributor Peter Lyon noted earlier this week, while Tesla might be the world's most valuable automaker right now, Japan didn't get the memo. The article points out that while Tesla has a market cap of more than $206 billion, is worth more than the big three US legacy automakers combined, that's Ford, General Motors and Fiat Chrysler if you were interested, and is poised to enter into the lauded S&P 500, Japanese customers aren't buying Teslas. And while it dominates the sales charts elsewhere in the world, it's the Nissan LEAF, Nissan's all-electric hatchback, that's proving super popular with Japanese buyers. If you're watching this and scratching your head, you're probably not alone. After all, although Nissan had a great start in the plug-in marketplace with the original LEAF back in 2011, it has, as we've discussed a few times on this channel, lost its way a little since then. And while the current Nissan LEAF and Nissan ENV200 are competent electric vehicles, they're not super exciting to drive. But in some markets, they're actually more expensive than the Model 3. That isn't actually true in Japan, where the Nissan LEAF starts at 4.99 million yen and Model 3 starts at 5.1 million yen. So technically it is cheaper just to buy an entry-level Nissan LEAF. But when that price difference is the equivalent of $1,000 and Tesla dominates Nissan elsewhere in the world with its superior charging speed, its higher performance vehicle, its supercharger network, and its over-the-air update systems, well, what's going wrong in Japan for Tesla? In his article, Peter Lyons makes a great start to discussing some of the challenges facing Tesla and details why maybe the LEAF is more popular than the Model 3. But based on my limited knowledge of the Japanese automotive market, Tesla's current support network in Japan, and what I know from my visits there, I think there are some other very important reasons that he misses out. First, however, let's look at the reasons given by Peter. He notes that Tesla's limited sales and service penetration into the Japanese market means that there are currently only 4 Tesla stores and 1 official service location for the entire country. And if you're interested, there are only 25 Tesla supercharger sites. This has left potential customers worried about aftermarket support and, says Lyons, means they're less likely to pick a Tesla. Add to this brand recognition, something he says is very poor, with only 1/2 of people interviewed in a March 2019 Nikkei research poll even knowing what a Tesla was. But those same people, 98% of them, knowing exactly what a Nissan LEAF was. These 2 main comments, though, miss some other really important factors that you may not know about Japanese electric cars and the Japanese electric car market as a whole. So let's go over them now. You see, while CHAdeMO DC quick charging is falling by the wayside in most countries around the world, becoming effectively a legacy standard, it really is the only mainstream charging standard in Japan. And that's no surprise, since CHAdeMO was originally developed in Japan. It was formed in a collaboration between the Tokyo Electric Power Company, Nissan, Mitsubishi, and Fuji Heavy Industries, otherwise known as Subaru. As of last year, there were 7,600 Tademo charging stations across Japan, many of them located in parking lots of convenience stores. And while Japan is known for being a very cash-centric society, honestly, you cannot go anywhere in Japan without at least 1,000 yen in your person, because card payments are still not accepted in many places. These charging stations have become as ubiquitous as filling stations. And that's really super important to know, because in Japan, while you can buy keijidoza, which are small cars that fit under a certain height, width, length and power limit that are allowed to park on the road at night, regular cars like the Nissan LEAF and Tesla Model 3 can only be purchased if you can prove that you have somewhere to park your car overnight. If you are super lucky, perhaps you have parking at your house. But for most Japanese people living in large urban centres, you must prove that you have a parking space that you rent before you're allowed to buy your car. And while I don't know this for sure, I'd love someone to tell me in the comments if they know, I'm assuming not all parking spaces come with easy access to a charging station or even a power outlet. This means that if you don't have your own off-street parking at your home, you're reliant on some form of public charging infrastructure, so it makes sense to buy a car that uses the most prevalent network. But wait, Nikki, I hear you say, Tademo adapters exist for Teslas? You'd be right, they do. But using one would require you to buy it and then carry it with you, and I'm guessing many people just don't see the point in that. Next, let's touch on Tademo's big party trick, which is backup power, two-way power transfer. Tademo is a two-way power standard, and for the last decade or so, there's been a massive uptake in V2G systems in Japan. Essentially, since the devastating tsunami and earthquake of 2011, there's been a pretty big push from the Japanese government as well as automakers to encourage car owners to use their cars as backup power stations in the event of an emergency. Those who do have homes and the ability to charge at home are fantastic candidates to use their LEAF or ENV200 as a backup power station of choice when paired with an appropriate home station. Oh, and in case you're curious, that's why hydrogen fuel cell cars like the Toyota Mirai and Honda Clarity have Tademo ports hidden away under the hood or somewhere in the trunk. It allows you to use Tademo to pull power from the car's fuel cell to power your home in an emergency. Anyway, I am digressing. The LEAF and its sibling, the ENV200, have been instrumental in spreading this technology, and it's a well-known and well-discussed added bonus to owning an electric car. Even some businesses and municipalities are getting in on the act, using V2G systems as backup power solutions in the event of another major natural disaster. At this point, I hope you're able to see that for Japanese buyers, the LEAF and ENV200 offer far more reassurance and practicality than a Tesla Model 3. So what about battery degradation, I hear you ask? Well, while it's true the LEAF and the ENV200 have suffered far more premature battery aging than any other electric car on the market, and Nissan's approach to fixing that problem hasn't been all that good. In fact, its switch to liquid-cooled batteries for the upcoming Nissan Ariya is about as close as we'll get to an admittance that it was wrong about passive air cooling. It's also important to remember that most cars in Japan don't actually have a very long life on the road. You see, Japan has some of the strictest rules on vehicle inspections anywhere in the world, which means that when a car reaches the age of 3, and every 2 years after that, it must go through a lengthy, expensive inspection process before it's allowed on the road. How expensive are we talking? 120,000 yen is about the going rate, which translates to about $1,000. Yes, you could do it yourself, but you'd have to be a pretty crack mechanic to fulfill all of the requirements of said test. Frankly, the test, known as the Shaken, makes the British MOT look like a walk in the park. And if you're from a US state where it's okay to have baler twine holding up your rear lights or your bumper, well, just be glad you don't live in Japan. The Shaken covers everything about the car and checks for rust, damage, wear and tear, and plenty more. And many cars are just written off by their owners as being uneconomical to repair when they don't pass. Given how hot and how humid it can be in Japan, which is a perfect breeding ground for rust, and how densely populated major cities are, it does kind of make sense that the Shaken is so intense. But it gets worse. When the car reaches 10 years of age, those inspections must happen every single year, which, in case you're interested, is why some countries like the UK, New Zealand and Australia have a fairly high number of ex-Japanese market cars on their roads. Cars that reach 10 years old are basically shipped to other right-hand drive countries and sold as grey market Japanese imports. This is cheaper in some ways than putting them through expensive yearly inspections. If we consider that most battery degradation issues occur after the first 5 or 6 years of ownership in LEAFs, well, then it becomes clear that it's not as big a problem to many Japanese customers as it may be to customers in other countries. Finally, there's one other thing we haven't touched on, and it is a big one: the whole process of buying a car in Japan. In Japan, automotive salespeople are treated very differently to their counterparts in other countries. The business you buy your car from may have been used by your family for years, perhaps even generations. You essentially are building up a professional relationship with the dealer and often individual sales staff and service staff within that dealership. You are their valued customer, and there's a very strong expectation that that dealership will give you things like free servicing or other perks when you buy a car with them. For the dealership, saving face and keeping a good long-term relationship with you is more important than making a few thousand yen profit on the car you just purchased from them. Japanese buyers tend to prefer Japanese dealerships and Japanese brands for this reason. They understand the etiquette and the business relationships associated with buying a car, and since most cars are made in Japan, parts availability is really good. There are many Japanese horror stories existing about buying imported cars from Europe or the US, only to have that car go wrong, and then for parts to take weeks or maybe even months to arrive at your dealership for the repair. Frankly, having experienced that exact same problem when we still lived in the UK and we owned a European spec Chevy Volt and it needed a part shipped over from the US, I can totally understand that. As a new brand, one which doesn't have decades of relationships with its customers or an established service network, Tesla is a company that many Japanese buyers just simply avoid. If you add in the Japanese norm of indirect communication, where things are stated in a roundabout way with ambiguous understatements and lots of metaphors, and well, it's clear that Tesla's standard method of operation doesn't really fit in with standard Japanese cultural practices. So there you have it. The Nissan LEAF outsells the Tesla Model 3, S and X by a very large margin in Japan. And now, I hope you understand why. If you'd like to help us make more videos like this one, please do like, comment and subscribe, and you can support us using the links below, which now include Ko-fi, Patreon and Bitcoin. Don't forget too that you can chat with the rest of the team on Discord, as well as other Transport Evolved fans. There's a link below, and if you're a Patreon supporter, you get access to our Patreon-only chat rooms. Thanks to the folks scrolling by on my right. There are charged up patrons. Thanks also go to Jeffrey Songster, John Lyons and Regine Fellows, our self-driving patrons, and special thanks to our Starman level patrons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback and Sean Udea. If you're looking for something else to watch from this channel, Google thinks you might enjoy this one, so check it out if you haven't, and I'll be back soon with more great content for you all to enjoy. Until next time, wash your hands, stay safe, wear a mask when you're out and about, and work to become a better, kinder person. Strive for equality, speak out against injustices and big old bullies, and remember to treat others as you'd like to be treated yourself. Oh, and if you are going out to protest, exercising your democratic right to peacefully protest, be the change. And if you're exercising your democratic right to peacefully assemble and protest, please keep your wits about you. Thanks for joining me, and until next time, keep evolving.